Okay, it's about 8:32 p.m., pretty close to 8:30, and welcome to the week 6 of Introduction to Corrections. And I look forward to having each of you for about 5 more weeks for this course. So we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Move that up. Okay. As you can see, your week 6 lecture is taking place right now. Then won't have one next week. We'll have 2 more lectures, week 8 and week 10. And as usual, I will provide a link to the recording itself. So let's go over and see what's up for this week. Prison experience, male versus female. I already provided to you the PowerPoints for section 6, 8, and 11 of the text for your assistance in preparing these assignments this week. Then we're going to go over the classification, myth versus fact, and then close out with some thoughts from a prison lieutenant. And then your discussion post, issues unique to female inmates. Initial post was due last night, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And your reply post is due Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Finally, there are 2 written assignments this week. 3 issues in male prisons today and the Stanford prison experience. And you want to make sure you follow the rubrics, which I'll go over in just a few minutes. And then a reminder of my motto: we're still at the finish strong stage. We're at the halfway point, and remind you that adversity is the springboard to success. So let's take a look at our course calendar real quick. Again, it's always the place where you will find the schedule if you forget it. Okay, and this one has some extra stuff in it, so let me remove that. You got the J115 in there. Okay, so there we go. So now you have left here is your reading assignment for this week, your initial post, your lecture, which is taking place right now, your reply post, then your 2 written assignments. And both of them are due the 13th, which is Sunday, Mother's Day, by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, next week, there is no lecture. You have your reading assignment, your initial post due on Tuesday, then Saturday, your reply post at 19th, and then you have an assignment relating to the course project that's going to be due week 6. Now, it's very important because you're getting to the end of your course project assignments. So you want to make sure that you did week 2, of course, and week 4 I will be grading the next day or so, and you'll have those as well. And then again, we're coming to the end of the project, so you want to make sure you keep up with that. So now let's go to the module itself. Again, let's quickly go over the assignments and remind you that you need to prepare. This is a 2-page paper, and then you have to satisfy both of these points right here. And you'll see in the rubric, if you just take a look at the rubric, which tells you the due date next to it, And here is the rubric. You'll get 15 points if you prepare the right number of pages. And then you'll answer these questions. And then this is more of your formation, your grammatical requirements, and so forth. You'll lose 2 points. You'll lose some points if you don't get the 2-page requirement right. Then, of course, if you don't have citations, references, and a cover sheet, you will lose points for this. If you don't have citations or references, you're going to lose all 5 points. If you have citations and references and no cover sheet, then you're going to lose 1 of the 5 points. So the key thing is for you to get the 25 on it, and make sure it's a pretty straightforward assignment. Okay. And then your other written assignment, the prison Stafford experience, is based on a video, and you're going to follow the slideshow, and then you're going to answer these 4 questions. Make sure you have citations and references. Again, here's the rubric. Now, this is not a 2-page requirement. 1 page is fine, but make sure that you don't, you run your papers through Grammarly so you don't get hit. But anyway, you want to deal with all of the points here and answer these 4 questions. Now, look at what the rubric says. It says a 2-page paper. You can do a 1. If you do 2 pages, if you don't do 2 pages, I won't deduct points for it. This is one of those where, oh, okay, there it is. I gave you the wrong one. The Stanford says a minimum of 1 page. The other one was 2 pages. All right? So the Stanford experience is 1 page, and you answer these questions. And then, again, you get your citations, your references, and your cover sheet. So actually, these last 2 points are the same throughout. 1 changes based upon the actual assignment itself. So you want to get a total of 25 points for that. Getting it in on time, of course, you know you'll lose 10% for each day that is late. I usually round down when I do the percentage because 10% of 25 is 2.5, which could be 3 points off. But instead, I give the benefit of the doubt and take 2. So, for example, if you're 2 days late, you're going to lose 4 points. If you're 3 days late, you're going to lose 6 points, and so forth, and so on, and so on, okay? Unless I have some extenuating circumstances that I have been made aware of. And if I'm not aware of them, then I'm not going to give you any consideration as far as that's concerned. So that's the written assignment. In addition to that, you also have your discussion post, which we have already alluded to. Okay. So those are your assignments for the week. Pretty straightforward. Again, the key thing is making sure as you read your paper, did you satisfy the rubric? That is how you maximize. I had a student, a couple students in these classes that have gotten 100%. You know why? Because they follow the rubric. And I read these papers. I have a whole bunch of students, but I can go through them and I read them. That's why it takes me some time to get your grades out to you, because I take the time and I read them, and I read them pretty fast because I know what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that you satisfied the requirements of the rubric and the assignment module, which is the same thing. Okay? So now let's go on and let's talk about some things. So there is a little difference in the male-female experience, and we're gonna talk about that. Again, these are the assignments. We're going to talk about classification. Myth versus fact is a basic little quiz thing that you can do. I might not do the whole thing with you. And then we're going to close out with from a prison lieutenant, the interview. Okay. So let's talk about classification. So when a person goes into prison, they go through what we call orientation, and they're fingerprinted. They take their mug shot, and they do all those things. They determine what risk level that you are based upon your times that you've been there, or either the crime that you committed, and you're assigned to an institution based on that. And they come in various, from maximum all the way down to minimum. And so what happens is that depending on the crime that you committed, also you will be placed based upon whether there are needs that, and these are primarily minimum, not max or super max. If you have drug or need for drug or alcohol treatment, recognizing the fact that it is important that if you have those problems that they are addressed, because it will adversely affect the recidivist rate if you find yourself in a situation where that's not treated, because all you're going to do is, as soon as you get out, you're going to get back to using the drugs and the alcohol, and you're going to end up back in prison. The other thing is possible education. It's been established that it's cheaper to educate than to incarcerate, and it's also been established statistically in research that the more education individuals receive, the less likely they are to return to jail or prison. I participated in a program when I was practicing law called Probation Challenge, where if an individual came before this judge, his name was R. Eugene Pencham, in room 702 of 26 in California, which is our main criminal courthouse, that if you came with a nonviolent offense, then it appears that you had not gotten your GED or high school diploma, the opportunity would be offered to you to get your GED, and if you get your GED successful in the program, then the charges would end up being dropped. And that was a great opportunity. What ended up happening is that many people took part in that program, ended up deciding not only after that, but to go to junior college. In fact, Probation Challenge aligned themselves with one of the city colleges of Chicago, Olive Harvey, on the far south side of Chicago, where students attended a junior college. And then some even went on further and did 4-year degrees. So education, when they're focusing on that, they're less likely to commit crime. And also education provides an opportunity for individuals to use their knowledge to make a living and provide support for their family. Also, job skill training programs. So depending on, like I said, these are the lower levels. The maximums, you may have them, but they're not as focused. You're not as focused on it because you don't have enough time, because you're locked up for so long. And you'll hear that talked about at the end. So, and then what happens is that oftentimes individuals, when they are incarcerated, whether rightfully or wrongfully, they develop survival techniques, and they adapt to the culture of living in prison, and it's called prisonization. And so what they do is they develop some of the language, they even join some of the gangs, and participate in much of the illicit activity that takes place in prisons themselves. And even if they weren't susceptible to that, if they're going to be there for long periods of time, then these things begin to happen. It's been pretty clear that individuals who have been wrongfully incarcerated for, a number of years, when they are released, will find themselves with a problem because they have become so caught up in the private prison culture that they have developed these habits, and so it's almost like you have to process them out, and as a result, they will come out, and even if they got money, they will end up back in trouble again. I've seen it time and time and time again. There are two issues that are really prevalent in prisons today. Gangs, which go pretty much with the violence. Now, it's not just gangs, but it's primarily gangs. But there are different factions that individuals get involved in. And then sex, where inmates are sometimes exposed to individuals who will take advantage of them sexually. And unfortunately, they are also subjected to some of the correction officers or guards who take advantage of these individuals. And so it became a problem. It says here that although sexual victimization in prison is less pervasive than originally thought, it occurs so much to the point that President Bush in 2003 signed the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which provides information and training to inmates and staff. So, but you can be aware of the fact that those kind of things still take place even with this act. Violence is something, as I said, that takes place at all levels. Sometimes there are actual riots, but most of the occurrences you will discover have some gang affiliation involved in these types of situations. And then it's hard sometimes for the number of inmates. Prisons are overcrowded, and the ratio of correction officers to inmates is pretty high, and it's pretty hard to control these individuals. So now this is something we talked about in terms of males, but the same kind of issues also apply to women, but they have some other issues. And females basically find themselves going to prison generally for some kind of act that a male has taken part in or used those individuals. And a lot of nonviolent crimes, and find themselves dealing with drugs. And so those numbers have gone up. Individuals, once that are females, are in prison, they have a lot of issues, such as being taken away from their children oftentimes creates possible suicide issues. Individuals have a hard time handling those kinds of issues. And also there's some really violent female gangs that are in prisons. But when the female is taken away from their family and friends, it's pretty hard to cope oftentimes. And so the females dealing with prisonization involve formulating kinships with individuals that are in prison. And then there, as I said already, the motherhood, and then there are health issues that continue to take place. And then the sexual abuse continues to be a problem by the guards, as I said earlier. And so there is some idea that we try to work on those, but the problems that females face especially involve more sexual, mental health issues because of the family separation, and those kind of things. So those are, and then There are special needs that females need that aren't addressed as needed for females to deal with their personal issues that they have within their bodies during the time that they're incarcerated. So it creates some very serious problems. But the two top ones by far are the sexual abuse and the mental health issues that come about from separation from their family and children. Okay, so let's look at myth versus fact. We're going to look at a few of these, and I'm not going to submit them, but you can do them yourself. And so there is a question here before us: is it a myth that inmates easily adjust to prison? And so I'm going to say yes, it is a myth. And then I submit it. Depression and difficulties are common as prisonization occurs. We talked about that because of the problems that we already have discussed. Next, the question is, so it is a myth. Inmates don't easily adjust to prison life. Okay. Contraband is rare. We know the answer to that. That's false. Drugs, alcohol, gambling, and other unauthorized materials are common in all prisons, male and female. Most inmates are sexually assaulted, particularly when new to an institution. I say yes, but here's what they say. Prison rape is actually less prevalent than previously believed. I don't know where that's coming from, but I keep hearing over and over and over about the number of individuals. Let me put it to you this way. If you're an individual and it happens to you, it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It matters that you're an individual that it happens to. So it's still something that's present, and it takes place in most institutions. Myth. Due to tight control, assaults are rare. Well, we already know the answer to that. That's inmates commit more than 16,000 assaults against staff, inmates. Inmate on inmate assault is an ongoing problem. It's an ongoing problem because, again, as I said earlier, the numbers and things of that nature. Prison guards enjoy their power and fight rehabilitation efforts. Some do, some don't. Correction officers, though, now are being more educated, highly trained, and more favor rehabilitation and don't hold any animosity. So now, since you guys that are in college are who they prefer, as opposed to high school graduates, the attitude with prisoners as far as prison guards or correction officers is changing and operating more on a professional level. And as pointed out, rehabilitation is something that you're taught in college about dealing with an individual, respecting the individuals. You'll hear that in a minute. Women are seldom sent to prison. That's not true. Gender-neutral sentencing reforms have placed more women behind bars. Again, as I said, most women go to jail because of a nonviolent offense, drugs, alcohol, or something, or involved with some kind of activity with a male person very often. Female inmates form quasi-family units, including same-sex relationships. The truth of the matter is that there's a lot of mistrust. And so that doesn't happen on a regular basis because of the fact that that's not really their family. Even if it's same sex, that's not their partner. And so they find themselves in situations where they're not going to trust those individuals. The majority of female inmates are young and unattached. That's false. Approximately 60% are mothers. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Excuse me, when I pointed out that there is a major problem that takes place with females when it comes to prisons, and then the high rate of suicide and other issues, depression that take place because a mother is separated from her child or children. And that's the end of that. Okay. So now let's go down here and let's look at this thoughts from a prison lieutenant. And I'm going to freeze the camera, and I'm going to take out sound because you'll hear it better. Then I'll come back. Corrections Lieutenant, Minnesota Corrections Facility in St. Cloud, which is an intake facility for the whole department of Minnesota. I've been at the department for 28 years. I started as a corrections officer, going into corrections sergeant, and now my current position, corrections lieutenant. I'm also the team leader for a special operations response team, and I also do a lot of training and that.
So what do you need to be a corrections officer? What are the minimum requirements?
GED or high school diploma. You apply online, and then they set up the testing. The test consists of a writing component and a video component. If you pass that test, you are granted an oral interview. A series of questions that they all get scored, and then you pass that. Then all candidates who pass that will fill out a form for a criminal background check, predatory offender check, and a criminal history check. So then they'll start doing that. If you pass all those, then you'll get offered a job. You get on a list to get offered a job. You need to be can't be incarcerated within the past year, and if you were, you need to provide documentation that you're off supervised parole or release time parole that's been completed.
Okay, so you do not need a 2-year degree or any experience. High school is sufficient.
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you get hired, you'll have to pass a physical exam, there'll be drug testing, TB testing, and then once you pass all that, you do 6 weeks of an academy, and then first year deployment is probation.
Okay, so lots of training that goes along, on-the-job training that goes along with this.
Yeah, the vast majority of that first 6 weeks is on the job, and then after that, you start a lot of job shadowing stuff.
Okay, so if I were hired as a correctional officer, is there a typical day, or what would my day look like?
Well, you drive to work, pick up your radio, your keys, put on everybody has to wear a utility belt, minimum cuffs, chemical irritants, report to your post. You could work anywhere from the living unit to your control center to supervising an offender crew. There's a lot of different posts for officers. The average day has a lot of observation and seem to be boring at times, but that can escalate to very dangerous and wild times in a split second. A lot of our situations are just dealing with officer presence, communication skills, verbal directives. We mainly get our compliance that way. If that doesn't work, go through the force continuum all the way up to hands-on, chemical irritants, intermediate weapons, whatever it might be. And it's not uncommon. We have fights quite regular. We deal with a lot of incompatibility issues and people getting restored. It's just ongoing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you are the intake facility. So do you classify inmates? Can you talk about that and what level of security is this institution?
The security levels for the institutions go 1 through 5, with 1 being the minimum, 5 being max. They determine the facility's security levels with operational needs and structural needs. For instance, the level 4 has requirements for mandatory armed outside patrol, or you might have 6
designated facilities, when they come to our facility, they're seen right in the intake area, they're fingerprinted, they're asked a series of questions, and take pictures of them, pictures of tattoos. You see health service right away, and then they're brought into the intake unit, which is an area I supervise. They spend about 30 days in there. They go through orientation. First full day they're there, and then they're seen by health service, psychology, alcohol, drug assessment, education testing. A lot of things going on to help their classification. Within the 14 days, first 14 days, their case manager should enter data relevant to their classification score. And their classification score is a number, and it's the factors of your current criminal conviction, what that is, your past criminal history in the last 10 years, your behavior in prison in the last 5 years, and then there are blocks in the classification. For instance, if you have life without parole, you cannot go below level 5, so it doesn't matter any of the other factors. So when was it 28 to 45 days of classification officer and PRT team meeting, they give you a score, and that'll determine your classification. At that point, we'll decide by classification, treatment needs, and there's a number of factors of what facility you need to move to, and then we'll transfer from there. And it's not uncommon for us to get 40 offenders in a day, we'll 40 out, so be very busy.
So the intake part doesn't happen in a day or two. It actually takes a few weeks.
Yeah, when they come in the e-house, they probably spend approximately the first 30 days in the intake unit, then they move to the next unit. Sometimes they can transfer right from that house. Probably in about 3 weeks, they're done with most of their intake needs, all their assessments and testing and stuff like that.
You talked about a lot of things that a correctional officer might do. And in our text, we've talked a lot about professionalism and issues related to just being healthy as someone who works in this field. What contributes to correctional officer professionalism?
Well, you're supposed to treat everybody with respect, be courteous, and give respect and give respect. People that seem to be successful in this career have the ability to deal with the stress we have in a center environment. They have a way to deal with it away from work, and also they tend to take the high road in tough situations.
Do you have advice for students today who are interested in going into this field?
Yeah, most people that are good corrections officers are good observers, they're good communicators, they have good de-escalation skills. These people are incarcerated, but they are human beings, and you treat them as such. As long as that's what they command at the time, if they escalate beyond that, that's another situation. Those are the people that are most successful. And like I said, there are a lot of rewards as far as dealing with people. Sometimes you can make a difference in situations. But keep in mind, we go from, it can be very boring and you get complacent to very exciting in a split second. So you see a lot of different things around here. Really, it seems dull, there never is a dull moment or moment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that is a good little piece of information for you. And so now let's go back to the classroom. Very quickly, these are the PowerPoints that I sent you. Section 6 has to do with the prison and the inmate experience. So you can go through, and it gives you some outline material that I've already discussed, and you can deal with these to help you to understand the different classifications of the prison themselves. I'm not going to go specifically and go over them. So help you to complete your assignments for the week. And then that's, I think it's about 2 more slides. Yeah. And that's it. So then, same thing, correction experience for staff. And then you will be able to talk about these issues in your papers and understand them as well. Some more information that will be very beneficial, talking about the pay, and then a little bit about the Stanford prison experience. Okay, that's part of your written assignment there. Okay, the experiment there. Closed institutions, so forth, and all of these different things. You should be aware that while that officer said that they take high school, you should be aware that yes, that's true, but many institutions are moving away from that because of the fact that they want more professional individuals, and that's why some people say, well, then I'm wasting my time if I'm going to go into corrections in school. No, you're not, because of the fact that it's beneficial for you to climb up the ranks. I have a student who has a bachelor's, and she ended up becoming a major, and other individuals become lieutenants. It's based on your education and those experiences as well. I don't think that when you work there, you want to stay at the lowest rank. You want increases and promotions as well. Okay. All right. Use of power, force, and so forth. Ethics. Okay. And then finally, the last one has to do with women and the things that take place, which we've pretty much covered. This is a good one here. You go through and you look at and you'll see a number of things that I covered during the lecture that are elaborated on and given you more details, some examples of what happens, and talked about how the numbers have increased and that why there's been an increase, and some of the problems that have occurred that create the increased number of females that are incarcerated. This part of it right here, feminism. Okay. And then the need for more programming for females and so forth and so on. Two cases. And those kinds of things. So anyway, these PowerPoints are more informational for you. And like I said again, if I took the time to go over all the PowerPoints, then basically I would be going like 2 hours with the lecture, and I'm not going to do that. So anyway, that's beneficial to you. So anyway, if you have any questions about any of the assignments, I've already gone over those in detail. I've given you some ideas to help you with your papers. And make sure that you conduct some research before you submit your papers. That's one of the requirements. So I'm going to end the meeting, and I'm going to say good night. I'll see you in 2 weeks with our next to our last lecture, which will be in week 8. Good night.